What's up, everybody? It's Peter Tragos, the lawyer you know, and on this channel, we break down the trials and cases you care most about so you can understand how the American civil and criminal justice system works. And we try to make sure you understand what your rights are in every situation, which is why we try to walk you through the entire legal process while also answering your insightful questions along the way. And while it's not legal advice, it's always exciting. So buckle up for another episode of The Lawyer You Know. What's up, everybody, and happy Friday here as we are looking into a new case. And I did not expect to be looking into any new cases except for the fact that enough of you reached out on Twitter and on Instagram and on YouTube. If you want to follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Tragos Law, and told me you wanted my reaction and for me to look into this Lindsay Clancy case. And I must say, it's unfortunate. Not one I wanted to look into. It is incredibly sad. These facts are devastating. So a warning before we get into them that if you're having a happy, jolly Friday, it's probably going to change as it did for me as I read through these facts, because it's your worst nightmare as a young husband coming home to what Lindsay Clancy's husband had to come home to on all levels. And regardless of the outcome of this legal case, I feel for him in a way that it's hard to even just think about what he must be going through right now and what he's been going through over the last several days. So if you don't know, what I'm going to do in today's video is give a little bit of background. I probably won't go into gory detail about the facts, but you will understand what this case is about. And what I want to do is talk about what the insanity defense is like in Massachusetts, where this case takes place, and what I think each side is going to argue based on the arraignment. And if you guys want more on this case, hit that like button and let me know in the comments. And if you want me to continue following this case and you want to be here for these update videos, make sure you subscribe and hit that reminder bell. Maybe this case will be what pushes us to 200K. We will see. But I'm going to weave the facts into the way insanity works in Massachusetts to kind of give us a picture of what we think this case or this trial, if it gets there, will be like. Because at this point, unlike the case out of Florida where the kid was eating people's faces, the state is not agreeing that this is an insanity case, and they think that this was premeditated murder. And the victims of the case were her 3 young children. Her husband came home after running errands and picking up takeout to find Lindsay Clancy laying in the backyard. Actually, after he went up to the bedroom, the door was locked to the bedroom. The window was open. She's on the ground, obviously injured. Turns out, I believe she's got some paralysis, major injuries, cuts on her wrists. And she tells him she tried to commit suicide. He asks where the children are. And he said first thing he noticed how quiet it was around the house. She said they're in the basement, and there he goes to find his 3 children. And how all this happened and why she's charged with murder is the legal aspect of the case that we are going to focus on and we are going to discuss in today's video. In Massachusetts, so she is charged with 3 counts of murder. In Massachusetts, for insanity, it's more like Florida where it's not guilty by reason of insanity. But first, what you must show is that the defendant was insane at the time the crime was committed. So, you hear about temporary insanity. You hear about somebody who has a switch flipped or hears voices or medication or whatever it may be, and they were legally insane at the time of the crime. And in Massachusetts, I think it's important to point out that you are presumed sane. So when you have a presumption, just like a presumption of innocence in a criminal case that the defendant has, they are presumed sane. And in order to prove that they are not sane, the defense has a burden to actually put on evidence to prove that. So I think it's important for us to remember that while they don't have a burden to prove that they're not guilty and the state has the full burden to prove their guilt, when you have an affirmative offense like this, you're basically saying, an affirmative defense like this, you're basically saying, I did commit the acts for which they say I am here for, but I was legally insane at the time, which in Massachusetts, again, the second, you have to prove they were insane at the time of the crime. And the second is that due to that insanity, right, you don't just have a mental health issue, right? Because that doesn't just automatically mean you have an insanity defense, but due to that insanity, either you were not able to understand the consequences of your actions, or you were not able to understand the consequences of the action, or sorry, you were able to understand the consequences of your actions, but you were not able to tell that what you were doing is wrong. So you either don't understand the consequences, or you don't understand that those consequences are wrong. And you can't necessarily tell the difference between right and wrong. So it changes your perception, and it makes you not be criminally culpable. You do not have the mens rea, the mental state that is sufficient to commit the crime for which you are charged. So the defense at the arraignment hearing said that she's basically a victim of the system. She has postpartum depression. She has anxiety. And all they did was throw pills at her. More pills, more pills, more pills. I think he said something about Medicaid. And basically, that was it. She told people she was having issues. She was diagnosed with anxiety, and she lost it. Additionally, when she spoke to her husband after the fact, she told him that a voice in her head told her to kill the children, and she had a moment of psychosis. Those are almost buzzwords for legal insanity. Voices telling you what to do, and a moment of psychosis. The husband said she had never mentioned voices before, and she had never really had these issues before. She did have anxiety, but it did not seem to be something that was happening to this level. The defense attorney also stated that she was a danger to herself and others, and had been for some time. Now, that is going to be the start of an insanity defense argument. But there's some case law from Massachusetts in describing how this legal insanity works. And I wanted to read you an important part from one of the cases that I think the state is going to use here, because they are adamant that this was premeditated murder. The Commonwealth, this is the state, the prosecutors, may prove criminal responsibility through the inferences arising from the circumstances of the offense, including evidence that the defendant planned the offense. So we'll start with that one. The state says that in this case, Lindsay Clancy absolutely planned this. She sent her husband out for takeout. It was her decision. She picked a restaurant that was much further away than they normally got takeout from. And she added stops along the way, some of which were even difficult for him to pick up medication and other things. She checked his maps and how far, Google Maps, I guess, to see how far away he was or how long it was going to be until he came back, so that she would have enough time to execute this planned murder. So this was planned by her. So that the defendant planned the offense or acted on a rational motive. Postpartum depression, is that insanity, or did she want to get rid of her kids? Is that going to be a motive the state uses? Made rational decisions in committing the offense and in avoiding capture. Made sure her husband was gone so she could execute her plan of attack. Made sure he was gone long enough for her to be able to get it done before he got home. And lastly, or did they attempt to conceal the offense or his or her role in the offense? And I think there's at least an argument to be made by the state that by jumping out of the window and attempting to commit suicide, which is what she told her husband she did, that was in fact her attempt to either conceal or get away with it or not have anybody understand or know what happened. Now, it doesn't make sense because they're still going to be able to put pieces together, but in her mind, was that her way of avoiding responsibility or concealing responsibility? The Commonwealth also may prove criminal responsibility through admissible evidence of the defendant's words and conduct before during and after the offense, including evidence of malingering. So, what conversations did she have with her husband beforehand? What was it like between her and the kids beforehand? She sent him away. When he came back, she told him that she tried to commit suicide. And afterwards, she admitted that she did commit these acts because a voice told her to do so, and she had a moment of psychosis. So this fits right into this insanity argument that we're going to have, where she admits to doing this horrible act, but she does not have the criminal mental culpability that fits in with convicting somebody of first-degree premeditated murder. The defense is making their angle clear. The medication, the anxiety, the depression, which is most of the time when they win, it's something like that. We have had cases that Pete, my dad, represented defendants on that have been successful in this type of psychosis and snap based on similar facts. So this is a way that someone can end up with a not guilty by reason of insanity plea. And if the state's doctors do their investigation, do their testing, ask their questions, and they come up with the fact that she was legally insane at the time of the murders, then that's what you can expect here. Doesn't mean she goes home free. She goes in some kind of mental health facility. And as it sits right now, she has no bail, but because she has paralysis and other major injuries that she inflicted on herself, she is going to be in rehab facilities for the time being. But it seems like it's going to be no bail because of how horrific the facts are in this case. So, if you are interested in this, let me know in the comments and by liking the video, and we'll see what happens, and we'll continue to follow it and answer your questions that you have in the comments. But let me know, because if enough of you are, I will continue following it and see how the insanity plays out in this case. Thanks for being here, and hit the like button on your way out.